Hi, it's Carolyn.
And Vanessa.
From Not Another X-Files podcast.
We're the female-led X-Files podcast you didn't even know you were looking for.
We've got plenty of opportunities for nostalgia, conspiracies, forbidden romance, and plenty of laughs.
It's true. Come on over to our place in Vancouver, Canada, and revisit your favorite 90s sci-fi TV show.
You'll be glad you stopped by. You can find us on all your favorite podcast spots.
And on the web at notanotherxfpod.libsyn.com.
Bye.
Bye. Music for this promo by Purple Planet.
And welcome to the Vocal Fries podcast, the podcast about linguistic discrimination.
I'm Carrie Gillen.
And I'm Megan Figueroa.
And today we have kind of I guess you'd call it a retrospective. We decided we wanted to look back on our first year and see what we've learned and what we've taken away from this experience.
Yeah.
Because everything keeps coming up over and over again.
Yeah. Not to toot our own horn, but it's always something happens in the news and it's well, here's episode such and such for you to listen to because we talked about this.
It's true. It's nice having a back catalog. Although there are so many things left to talk about.
No, I know. I mean, there are things that come up in the world where I'm we don't have that episode yet. But it also means we have some job security.
Well, job.
Yes, sorry. I'm a millennial, so the word job is just, we throw it around and it doesn't mean anything anymore.
We want to thank 2 new patrons from last month.
Yay!
Chris Lott and one of our former guests, Peter Jacobs.
Peter!
I know, he's the best.
Who is episode 5 on the res. Yeah, we really appreciate the Patreon support. Of course, we appreciate any support, saying hi to us on Twitter or all of the low-key support that, maybe we don't say thank you enough for. We always appreciate all of that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fun to interact with all of you on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And it's fun because you never know which one of us you're getting.
There are clues, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to pay attention.
Yeah.
Anyway. So just a reminder, we also have our July bonus episode up on Patreon with Daniel, Ben, and Kylie from Talk the Talk. And you can get that at the $5 level. And they also interview us for their Patreon. So if you want to listen to them talk to us...
And they're a weekly podcast. So
oh, really?
Nice. I think so. So you get a lot of episodes there.
They do have a lot of episodes, and they've been also doing it for 6 years, I think they said.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, who knows? Maybe we'll be still doing this in 5 more years.
Well, I mean, I think I said it before, but when my partner was like, how are you going to have enough material? I was just side-eyed him and went on with my day because I was like, you don't understand.
Yeah, there's just so much linguistic discrimination. So much.
Yeah. I mean, we've already done, for example, Chicano English, kind of an overview, but we could do a Chicano English episode where we talk about how it affects kids specifically in K through 12, It's just you can take any one of the episodes that we've already done and there are 10 more episodes on them because language affects a lot. Again, because it is a proxy for so many other things.
Well, it's kind of foundational, right? You can't really do anything that involves sort of human ingenuity without language, really. Pre-language, what were we doing? I mean, there was tool use.
Right.
But, we already know that other animals also use tools. But, basically everything that we think of, you have to have language.
Right. So one of the things in this retrospective that I wanted to make clear, when we say language, we mean both modalities. We mean speech and we mean sign. And I think that that's something a lot of times that when people maybe think about language or write about language that they forget.
Yeah, most people do forget about sign language, I think, unless you actually explicitly say sign language. But when we say language, we mean the particular kind of communication systems that humans use, not just, gesture on its own, but like, structured signs. And the structured signs can be spoken or they can be signed.
Right.
Yeah. So yes. We haven't done a sign language episode yet. And we've been talking about this since day one that we want to do that. So hopefully that will happen soon.
Yes. It's like, it's definitely on the to-do list, to want list, to want, definitely want. But yeah. And I mean, I think that's just one of those things where I always see stuff on the internet. I can tell that our deaf and hard of hearing friends are still struggling to get people to understand that sign is language, and it's heartbreaking. But yeah, I guess just reminding people
yes.
that it's just the same as speech. It's just a different modality.
It's a different modality, and one of the things I meant to bring up is there is something kind of, as far as I know, actually unique about sign language that doesn't exist in spoken, and it has to do with pronouns or deixis, or like pointing. So when you introduce somebody in sign, apparently you can do this thing where you say, you have the person's name, and then you point to a space in the like signing space, and then when you want to refer back to that person, you just point to that spot.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the modality is different, you can do slightly different things.
Yeah.
Which is fun and cool and interesting.
Yeah.
But that's not like, that doesn't make it bad or worse. It just makes it actually more interesting.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So anyway, I really want to talk about it. So at some point, hopefully we will.
Yeah. And one other note that not all sign is the same.
Right. There are different sign languages. Yes.
Yeah.
So ASL, the American Sign Language, is spoken or signed in the United States and parts of Canada. But Canada also has a second one, at least one other one, probably more, which is the Quebec Sign Language, which is used in areas that are francophone. So mostly Quebec, but other parts too.
That's one thing I wanted to say where I've noticed over this past year. Not that any of our listeners have said anything. It's just that the things that I keep coming up against on the internet, now that I'm paying more attention, like I've always paid attention to obviously stuff related to language because I am a linguist. But now I have this like different lens. I'm like, how will it be related to the podcast and how can we talk about this? And I see so many people making at a certain point very like ableist error that that sign is not language,
right?
So
or like a lesser form of language.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and like you do that implicitly when you say things like Coco mastered sign language,
exactly,
as opposed to she knew some signs,
right?
Because she did know some signs, they were modified. But they were signs, like, I don't want to take that away from her, but all she had were words, basically. That's all she had.
Yeah.
And so to suggest that anything more than having some words, very problematic.
Right. Yeah.
So don't do that.
Yeah.
Not that our listeners are probably doing that, but
Yeah.
Spread the word.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another thing that keeps coming back up over and over and over and over again.
Oh my God, are you going to talk about vocal fry?
Vocal fry. And I knew, like, especially since we set up our name to be Vocal Fry, is like, okay, this is a thing that's going to come up a lot. It's come up a lot ever since 2011.
Yeah.
Before that, nothing.
Right.
There's a reason for that.
Except even though it existed.
Of course, it's probably always existed since people spoke.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely existed. Even in the sort of like stereotype of what people think about it now, before that, but no one was aware of it.
Right.
Until a certain study came out it came out in 2012, but it was advertised in 2011. And so late 2011 on, we've been talking about it. So it's like, okay, 7 years later, we're still talking about it. People still think it's okay to shit on, even when we're like, hey, shitting on Vocal Fry is sexist. 2 people at least were like, here's why you're wrong. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, but I was going to say, it's not just men, as much as
It's not.
sometimes I joke and think it's always men. It's not. And that's
No.
actually very important.
Yeah, misogyny can be internalized.
Yeah, exactly.
We're swimming in it. It's really hard not to be a misogynist in this culture.
Right. And it really affects you. And I just remember when I first heard about what vocal fry was, there's been 2 people in my life that have told me to get rid of it that were really important to me. I mean, not because I like looked up to them kind of thing, but because they were authority figures. I grew up and my parents taught me, listen to authority figures, right? I mean, they're supposed to know. And it just made me feel really shitty about myself. And it was like, I wasn't going to be able to change this. I'd have to go like speech therapy to change, or, get some sort of vocal coach. Like that was a thing. I would have to take like actual steps to fix some quote unquote, fix something. And it really sticks with you. And don't we have a letter?
We do have a letter. Yeah, we do. So someone sent us an email, and I'm not sure if she wants us to say her name. We only have the first name, but just in case, I'm not going to, because it seems very personal, but I do think that the message is really important. So
yeah.
So she says, I just want to say thank you for your amazing podcasts and for bringing up topics that really hit home for me. I had a horrible experience my first semester of college in my public speaking class that still bothers me. I was never afraid of public speaking, but my professor made me embarrassed of my own voice. I still feel insecure about it. She took points off every speech for vocal fry and uptalk, told me I was damaging my voice, and questioned my credibility in front of that class because of my voice. She said I talk the way I do because I've been conditioned to believe I'm less powerful than men. I've been upset about this for so long, trying to change something that is not easy to change. Thank you for making me feel more confident about myself. Thank you so much. And oh my God, I am so angry on your behalf because, first of all, let's unpack all that language ideology.
Right.
You're damaging your voice. No. I don't know how anyone can believe that is about uptalk. Certainly not. But even vocal fry, which I guess maybe when you're singing might, because singing is hard on your voice, or on your vocal cords. So it's possible that adding vocal fry might. In that case, I'm willing to admit that might be true. I don't know for sure, but that seems plausible. Yeah. But just talking, like you have to show that to me, and no one's ever shown it to me. People keep saying it with no evidence.
Right.
Number 1. Number 2, questioned your credibility because you're a woman, really. It's got nothing to do with the way that you talk. It's because you're a woman. It doesn't matter how you talk. Right. You talk too masculine or you talk too feminine, you're going to get shit on. Yep. Then she said that you've been conditioned to believe you're less powerful than men. I'm assuming that's directed to the uptalk part. First of all, men use uptalk too, even in the United States. It's used slightly differently by men and women, according to the studies that I've read, but still men use it. And men are more likely to use it the more authoritative they are, like the more authority they have. So the higher they are on the social hierarchy, the more likely they are to use it. So using it is not a sign of insecurity. Fuck that.
Yeah. And also, it actually is true that we've been conditioned to think we're inferior to men, but she's the one that's actually displaying it, this teacher.
Yes.
She's the one that's displaying it by saying these vocal characteristics you have are making you sound less than or uncredible. Because somewhere along the lines, she has determined these are female vocal characteristics. Right,
which, neither of them are female characteristics. Right. Women do tend to use vocal fry slightly more than men in North America, but only slightly more, and yeah. We just don't even notice. Well, I do, but lots of people don't even notice when men use it. So I just think maybe with younger men use it slightly less. That's what the studies say. But with older men, I think it's flipped. Neither of them are actually gendered in the way that we think. They're slightly gendered, but not in the way that we think. Mm-hmm. And neither of them show any kind of insecurity. Vocal fry was, until 2011, associated with authoritative men. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's only after the study came out that we suddenly associated it with women, and therefore, because we think women are flighty and silly and all these bad things, now we associate it with all those things. Every time this comes up, I see flames. I'm so angry. Because the more I know about it, the more I'm like, gah!
Yeah. The thing that makes me the saddest about this letter is that she says that she actually, I don't know if she says she likes or she's good at public speaking.
She felt like really confident about it before.
That's the sad part for me.
Yeah, this professor destroyed her confidence. Why?
Yeah, for what good reason? You know, and I hated public speaking.
Was that a class?
For me?
Yeah.
No, it was like when I'm in grad school and they're like, you know, you're going to have to give conference talks and stuff. So you need to get your shit together and not use vocal fry. So I was already like unconfident. And it's like, you know, whatever. But for me to hear someone saying that they were confident and like, and you know, it's to be like,
to have that taken away.
Yeah. And okay, so all right, it's a public speaking class, but like we said in like our first episode, we need to like flip the script, and it needs to be like, if your feedback has to be about vocal fry, you need to be like, you were great, everything you said was great, I believed everything you said because you said it confidently, but there are gonna be people that shit on you because you use vocal fry.
But you also should say, but you know what, it doesn't matter, because no matter how you talk, someone is gonna find fault with it. You're gonna sound shrill, you're gonna sound too breathy, you're gonna sound too babyish, you're gonna sound too masculine, you're gonna sound too feminine. It doesn't matter, women can't win.
You're going to say too much. You're going to say like in there.
Right. And men are not going to get in trouble for those things. Only women, usually. There are some cases where men do get in trouble for saying like too much, like the Piers Morgan thing from a few episodes ago. But generally speaking, men can get away with a lot more stuff than we can. And so I just think instead of being okay with that, we can just say, no.
Yeah.
I'm going to sound confident in the way that I feel confident in. You know, like, let's focus on internal confidence as opposed to sounding confident, which is not a thing. Like, yeah, there's no, like, template for what that actually sounds like.
Yeah. And, I mean, this podcast is actually, well, doing a PhD program, too, where you're forced to speak all the time. But this podcast has made me feel a lot more confident in speaking. I think because we've decided at the very beginning to call ourselves the Vocal Fries, but also to like, I mean, just the message of linguistic discrimination is here and it sucks. It's like, oh, wow, I kind of have this like protective force around me where it's like people that listen, if they actually listen, they know that the way we speak is not as important or important at all. Compared to our message, compared to what we're saying.
Right. We explicitly, that's explicitly our message.
Exactly.
Focus on content, not on aesthetics. I mean, it's not that aesthetics are always bad or wrong or anything. It's just, that's an internal decision for yourself. Like, there's certain people, I don't like the way they talk. I never say it out loud. Right. Because that's a shitty thing to do. And it's really more about me than it is about them.
It makes you an asshole. If you say it out loud.
It would make me an asshole. Having an opinion is fine. It's when you state it for no real reason. Yeah. Other than to, make yourself feel better? So, anyway. Yeah. I'm glad it's making you feel more confident about speaking. So I had to, like, get much better at speaking. You know, the first time I ever gave a talk, I was in my last year of undergrad. And I spoke a mile a minute, and I was really terrified. But, you know, I'm much older now, so I still get a little nervous, but it's not the same. And certainly for this, it's very different, because the audience comes later.
I know! It's the best. If only all talks were like that.
Well, actually, I do actually like being in the room with people, because it's more, I don't know, like, it's more personal, and you can get feedback right away, and so I like both. They're just different.
I would love to be in a room with Vocal Fries listeners, because that would be fantastic.
That would be fun. Maybe one day.
Everyone's so positive and good.
Oh, and so one last thing about Vocal Fry. We also, some of you probably saw this, we also got into a kerfuffle on Twitter about this with a guy called himself a communications expert who complained about Vocal Fry, uptalk, and like the trifecta of sexist bullshit. Yeah. Yeah. So
it was a kerfuffle.
Yeah. I don't know if he still made his tweets, if he still has protected his tweets, but that was kind of satisfying that
he blocked us and then he unblocked us to say some more shit.
Yes.
Fantastic.
And then later he protected his tweets because he realized that he wasn't coming off well. So
No, it got pretty ugly.
yeah, it did.
Yep.
It could have been worse because it could have been more than one person and all that.
Right.
Like it could have been a mob.
Right.
But anyway.
Let's just say he threatened to sue us.
Which made me laugh so hard.
I know.
If he'd been American, I might have taken him more seriously, but he was in the UK, and I'm like, really?
Yeah. Try me, bro.
I don't think you can do I mean, maybe you can, but it'd be hard, I think, to sue someone in a different country.
Yeah.
So another thing that keeps coming up is accents.
Yeah.
And luckily, there's been a few things more recently that have been more on the positive side.
Yeah. There was a New York Times, do they call it an op-ed? They must.
It was an op-ed, yes.
Yeah, called Everyone Has an Accent. Remarkable.
Yeah, my favorite thing about that is someone, I don't remember who it was, so apologies, but basically pointed out this is like the truth, and yet it's an op-ed.
Yeah, that's why I was like, was it an op-ed? But yeah, that's why I was confused, because someone had said that. Like, this is a truth. A capital T truth.
Yeah, this is as scientific as it gets, but
yeah,
we can't do that with linguistics still.
No, because people still don't believe us that it's a science, for one thing.
No, I mean, it's still categorized as humanities in many places, and it's like, there are humanities elements, and there are parts of linguistics that are straight up humanities, but the vast majority of it is not.
Yeah, at U of A, it's social and behavioral science.
Mm-hmm.
No, never is it in the mind, brain, behavior, or that's what the other one is, like where psych is in and speech and hearing. I'm like, no, it belongs over there. But anyway, so Everyone Has an Accent by Roberto Re Agudo. Just thank you, Roberto.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, of course, I would have tried to do this a long time ago, write an op-ed that says everyone has an accent. But I guess for linguists, sometimes it's like, since it's one of those capital T truths, we forget that we need to kind of get the message out.
Well, I mean, that's what we're doing with this.
Right, exactly.
It's just a different way of doing it. But yeah, I was happy to see that because there have been many things recently in the New York Times that have made me so livid.
Oh yeah, this is definitely not an endorsement of the New York Times, not at all. More an endorsement of Roberto. But so his first line is, "I have an accent, so do you." I mean, full stop. Like, you just need to stop there, and that's all you need to know. But
well, no, people need to be convinced. So
it's true. So Anne Friedman, who is a co-host of Call Your Girlfriend, and I'm on her weekly newsletter, and she shares all the things that she's been reading this week. And the one that came out yesterday, so Friday the 19th or 20th or whatever, was this article was in there. And so I thought it was kind of poignant to see that there. And it made me think either she shared it because it was something enlightening for her, or because she wanted other people to know, Right. And it reminds me that even people that I think of as really smart and who are well read and who are up on current events and all this stuff may not know this as a truth.
No, they don't. Many people don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it also reminded me of what Carmen Fott said on our episode, where she said, it's like saying you just have a model of a car. No, you have to have a make and a model of a car.
But yeah, just wanted to mention this one just because I think it's, as listeners of the show and for us as linguists, this is a fight we're going to have to keep fighting for a bit, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It also reminds me of something that someone, Lisa Green, I believe, at the LSA said earlier this year. So the LSA is Linguistic Society of America. Our annual meeting is in January every year. So she was talking about African American English and how we keep having to say things over and over again about this language variety and how it's not a bad variety and blah 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 blah. Every generation we have to keep saying the same things over and over again. And she pointed out that advertisers would laugh at us because we think we have to say things once and then it's good. And that's not the way it works. You have to say things over and over and over again before people finally start to believe. I mean, this is how propaganda works as well, right? But
yeah,
not just propaganda, true things. You have to say it over and over again. So I think that's one thing that I like about doing this podcast is, we get to reiterate things over and over again. Hopefully people will start to absorb it.
Right. Maybe people are just listening for the first time today and they're like, what's the problem with suggesting that not everyone has an accent? The problem is that when we think that we're othering people, we're putting one accent as a default, which we do already, which is a problem.
But not even that. We're saying there's a thing that has no accent. And then there's accents. Which
right.
is
so okay.
bizarre.
So it's not a default accent. It's like accentless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah. And that would be like white, middle class, like news anchor talk.
Right. Like basically an accent that only exists on TV.
Right. Or what we're saying is basically accentless, and then everything else is other.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't want to do that because
we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it because it makes people feel bad. But yeah, even more importantly, it's just not even true.
Right. Yeah.
And then there was also another article on accent in Slate, and it was actually an article about "Sorry to Bother You," the new movie by Boots Riley.
I need to see that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I want to talk about it, but if you haven't even seen it,
no, that's what I almost was like. Maybe we should do it Sunday so I can see "Sorry to Bother You" today.
Well, maybe we wouldn't want to talk about it because maybe we would spoil it for people.
We could do it as a bonus.
Yeah, let's do it as a bonus for August. Anyway, so one of the main features of it, which is in the preview, or the trailer, so you would know this, is that he puts on a white voice. And it's a really extreme white voice. Right. So the article in Slate, how sounding white helps you get ahead on film and in real life. And so it goes through like how people, at least in the United States, 70% of the time in a study in 1999, so who knows if it's still true, but could I correctly identify someone's race based on just them saying hello. It's interesting, and there's some really interesting stuff in this article. But also watch the movie because it says some very interesting things about race and capitalism, and it's one of the weirder movies I've ever seen, and that is not a bad thing.
That's exciting. That makes sense. Exciting. Yeah, it reminds me of a recent MTV Decoded mini episode with Francesca Ramsey where it was just, you can't sound white. And I shared it from Twitter. But they basically, non-white folks go through talking about how messed up it is when you when you claim that they sound white. Yeah. So that's also a good. Yes. It's like 3 minutes. It's a good watch, but it all goes back to the same thing of having this like quote unquote ideal accentless way of speaking, and then everything else is. And
also that your accent means something about who you are as a person. So if you're a person of color and you sound too white, then maybe that says bad things about you. Right.
And in this little video, they're talking about how for some people that means that their community shuns them. Yep. Because they're kind of a sellout. So it's perceived it's so complicated. As a sellout. Yes. It's perceived as a sellout for sure. And it just reminds me that we have so many different people we still need to talk to on this show.
Yeah, we need to do a lot more. A lot more.
Yep.
Another thing that keeps coming up, and this is a more recent episode, so maybe that's why, but the 30 million words.
Yes. Aside from it being like one of my favorite episodes, because I love Nelson, he just really hit all the points. It was a great episode, and now the episode is like popping up everywhere.
Yeah, we even made it to a health blog. What?
I know. World domination. But people are still talking about the 30 million word gap. It was on NPR's Code Switch podcast too, where they talked about it. They talked to someone like an education journalist. So
yeah, that was a little unfortunate that they didn't talk to a linguist
or an anthropologist, educational anthropologist, or anyone. Yeah,
why talk only to a journalist about this? That seems so strange to me. Like, a journalist is a good person to intermediate, maybe, like to gather all the information, but like they can't be the only source.
No. Yeah, they are an intermediary. That's what you are as a journalist. Yeah. You know? So it's like you can't really get the nitty gritty, the important stuff that someone like Nelson can give you.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, that episode made me feel really empowered. And I was like, there are things that we need to fix, and we can do it. But yeah, no, I feel like there have been so many tweets at us where people are like, basically had their minds changed, it feels like.
It does, yeah, which is really great. And it really speaks to Nelson's ability to change people's minds.
Yeah, in a way that doesn't make you feel like you were at all like ignorant or whatever beforehand. It was more like, oh, okay. Like I had some sort of knowledge before, but I really feel like I have a better idea of what's happening, and I have some steps I can take to like maybe let people know about what's happening, or maybe even make things better.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the first step in making things better a lot of times is just changing the way that you think about it.
Yeah, it's basically admitting what's going on, right?
Yeah.
That's step one. So that's why even when someone only admits something and doesn't actually apologize for it, I'm still happy, because that's step one. It's not enough.
Yeah.
But it is step one. And so baby steps. So baby step number one is just admitting that, hey, this deficit nonsense is nonsense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just think about the word deficit. God, it feels icky. Why do you want to keep on with that?
I don't know. I mean, I think Nelson kind of explained it. Like, it makes us feel better, because it's like, well, we're not the problem. It's those people over there that's the problem. And so instead of being like, you know what, we have like two different cultures here.
Right.
Can we do something? Can we meet in the middle? But we don't. White people, we don't think that way. We don't think that way. We were like, oh, everything revolves around us. We conquered the world. Look at us, yay.
We don't have accents. Y'all have accents, not us. Get out.
Yeah. Yep. And we're unbiased. We see the world at in totality.
Tell us how it ends.
Oh, well, not well.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what, we all die.
Oh, it's so comforting.
Yeah. Eventually, the Earth will be destroyed, no matter what.
Speaking of dying and hills, and let's get into hills to die on. Yeah, we've gone over a few where I feel like people are gonna die on the hill of saying that vocal fry is annoying.
Yep, they're gonna be like, "Oh, it's just an aesthetic thing. That's fine. Keep it to yourself."
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you hate my blouse, keep that to yourself. Yeah,
people don't go up to you and be like, ugh, why do you have that haircut? Yeah, that's basically what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. I also feel like they're going to be people dying on the hill of not everyone has an accent.
Yeah, that one seems even weirder to me, because really, like, yeah. Nobody has this like super standard like white anchorman on TV, and I say anchorman on purpose. Like nobody has that accent except for people on TV, right? So I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm Canadian, but I'm like, well, obviously I have an accent. But like, so who are you who thinks that you don't have an accent, or that someone else doesn't have an accent? I don't get it.
I remember the last time I didn't think I had an accent, and I was like 5, and I was talking to my aunt who's like in Arkansas, and she was like, "Oh my God, your accent is so thick," and I was like, "Oh, yeah,
interesting."
I guess we both talk differently.
That's interesting.
So, yeah. Are there any other big things that keep coming up to us over the past year?
Well, like literally and like still come up, not as much, interestingly. Vocal fry is really the thing that's the most picked on. It used to be uptalk. Pre-2011, it was uptalk. And now it's vocal fry. But I'm still, team literally used as an intensifier, and team like. I love like. So
I love like. Yeah, like and are gonna be. I've seen a lot of stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it does come up a lot. I I get that if you're giving a speech or something, it sounds more speech-like if you're not using these filler words. But outside of that genre, I don't know why people care.
Right.
Or like maybe on radio, like if that's your job, maybe it would be weird if you were using a lot of ums. But again, like it's a job. There's like certain expectations that I'm like, okay, fine, let's. But like outside of that, who cares? And podcasts. I mean, unless you're like a super professionally produced podcast,
right?
Who cares? But people really, really care.
They do. They will not listen to podcasts. We had a comment, or I saw a comment that was like, I listened to like 2 minutes. I'm not going to listen to that podcast because of Vocal Fry. I'm like, wow. Like you're limiting yourself to like access to different kinds of knowledge or...
Also, you're lying. Because so many people use Vocal Fry.
Right.
That I just don't believe you.
Yeah.
I believe that you're only cutting out women who use Vocal Fry. And probably women who use Vocal Fry to a greater extent than a lesser extent. Because, like, you use it more than I do. But I still use it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone would notice that. So one of the first people to complain about Vocal Fry was this woman... I think she goes by Abby Normal on YouTube. And so it was, like, right after the study was first advertised... She did this whole thing about Vocal Fry, and she put it on really heavily, and then also did these other things because it's never really just about Vocal Fry. It's about Vocal Fry plus things, like we've talked about before. So she was using a lot of sort of nasality, and she put on this weird New England accent at the same time too. It was very strange. I was like, what are you? Anyway, but then when she took off the Vocal Fry, she was still frying.
Yeah,
just not as much.
Yeah. So
she was like had all these hedges, like, you know, using it a little bit is fine. And I'm like, you're using it a lot more than you think you are.
Yep. Exactly.
It's not really about Vocal Fry, it's about something else.
Right.
Anyway, so I feel like this is definitely going to be the fight that we're going to continually fight, partially because of our name, but partially just because it's just so acceptable still.
It is. And it's even grosser when it gets like coupled with racism and all these other things. So it's not just you and me, like people like you and me that are using Vocal Fry. It's going to be all, you know, it's going to be Black women, it's going to be trans women, right? Like we all use it and we're all going to be attacked for it.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you bring up trans women, because the first thing that I could find in the media where Vocal Fry was really used was like 2009, I think. And it was talking about how these voice coaches were trying to train trans women not to use Vocal Fry because Vocal Fry was associated with men.
Oh.
So in 2 years, it went from a feature of male speech to a feature of female speech.
Right.
And suddenly it got worse.
Right.
Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah, exactly.
Women of all races get attacked for it, although I do think that white women get attacked for it slightly more. Partially because Black women or other women of color get attacked for other things instead.
Yeah, it's like this gross hierarchy. Like, we're going to attack your Blackness first.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
And the fact that we're focusing on this does not mean that we think it's the only thing or the worst thing. It's just a very common thing to complain about.
It is.
Anyway, it's not okay to attack something, even if it were just about white women, it would still not be okay.
Right.
But it's not. It's not just about white women.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about the fact that this podcast has sort of brought new people into our lives.
Yeah.
A lot of new a lot of people who are in the podcasting community that I never would have met otherwise.
Yeah.
And there's too many people to list, but I wanted to thank especially people that we've like either been interviewed by or interviewed. So Lingthusiasm, Best Forever's Pod eventually is coming out.
Yeah.
Pod Magazine, which should come out soon-ish. Talk the Talk. Issa Worry. 2 out of the 3 women from Wine and Crime, but all of them. The Troublesome Terps. And then, you know, just like all the members of the Lady Pod Squad, the Underdogs, and there's just been so many great people in the podcasting community that I would never have interacted with otherwise.
Yeah, it's so supportive.
Very supportive.
Yeah. I've heard like bad things about YouTube communities and stuff, but podcasting community is very nice.
I haven't had any bad experiences. I know other people have,
Yeah, sure.
but I haven't yet.
Yeah.
So that's good. A whole year of it, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing bad.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I really wanted to thank everyone who actually is listening to two ladies yell at you to stop being assholes.
And man, yelling at you in vocal fry.
See, even you did it. You put on this other thing
I
that
know.
is not vocal fry.
I know. Well, me just talking is vocal fry, so.
That is true.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks for listening to us. And again, if you have any ideas, any suggestions, feel free to shoot them at us. We have a list. We're hoping to get to all of them.
Yeah. I mean, we can just keep going, right? Like, we're indie, so maybe, like, just make sure to write us a nice iTunes review so we get some bumps on the iTunes store, the podcast store. That's how it works, right?
However that works.
I don't know.
I know that reviews do matter, but there's not that many linguistics podcasts, so maybe it doesn't matter as much for us. I don't really know.
That's true.
But good reviews are always helpful.
Yeah. We love doing this, but remember we're indie, so we'd love if you could review us. Consider being a Patreon supporter, because we appreciate it so much. More than we can say.
Yeah, it helps us continue to do this.
Yeah.
For sure. And we're almost at the $100 a month level, which is nice.
Yay!
Yeah.
And we might have a few little things coming out soon that are...
Yes, we have a surprise thing coming out very soon.
Yes.
And we will post about that probably around the same time that this episode comes out.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been our year. We've talked a lot. We've had to talk a lot about and defend vocal fry on the internet.
Yes, and we're going to continue to yell at people for shitting on vocal fry.
Yeah.
Not because it's the only thing that matters, but because it's our name.
Yes.
And feel free to like ask us to talk about other things as well. It's just that's what we get tagged in to talk about the most. And
it's true. Yeah. And think about that letter that we read earlier, because that reminds me of, I mean, maybe it's okay that we've spent time talking about vocal fry because of things like that.
Yes. All discrimination matters.
Yeah. Exactly.
And none of it's okay. And, I also want to reiterate that we've both participated in linguistic discrimination in our past. We probably still are, and we don't even know. And every time something new comes up, I do think about it, and I do try to process it internally.
Yes. Because
doing it on the internet is a bad idea. I don't know why people do it.
Yeah. I know. Twitter is not your diary.
I mean, if you want it to be, it's fine. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I'm too private, I guess. Like, this is the most public thing that I really do.
I mean, it's pretty public.
It's public. It is public, but it's also somewhat polished.
Carrie edits out all the problematic stuff. Nah.
I do edit out some things that maybe haven't been fully cooked yet.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It's fine.
I have so many uncooked ideas. Thank you.
Don't we all?
I hate cooking.
I used to too, and now I actually kind of like it.
Oh, well.
Oh, you know what? I also want to say one more thing. At least since I was a teenager, I realized that I had a certain amount of privilege, right? Like, I saw the racism in my hometown towards First Nations people. Mm-hmm. I saw it very plainly, and towards other people of color too, but that was the worst. But still, knowing something like that and learning more through linguistics, learning all these, all the structural hierarchy of bias and et cetera, somehow I still learned more. Like, truly how privileged I am through this. Yeah. One of the things that people really appreciate is how, you talk about your connection with Spanish. I have nothing like that. Right? I don't even know how many generations ago my family didn't speak English. Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's how privileged I am.
Yeah.
And so, that's actually kind of it's a good thing to realize. You know what I mean? It's oh yeah, I have this place in the world, and I need to recognize it and really deal with it.
Yeah, and I feel like you're doing a really amazing thing by conceiving of this podcast, and that's you in one way dealing with it.
It's true, absolutely, but I didn't think about it that way at the time.
That's true. Yeah, I guess that's something you've come across this last year. Maybe you're a fortune teller.
I don't believe in that stuff, but yeah, maybe. But anyway, so I just wanted to like acknowledge that I do have this privilege, and I've known about it, but somehow you don't know it all, and I'm sure there'll be more that will come towards me that I will be like, oh, I need to unpack this too.
Oh, me too. Yeah, especially like when we did they, theirs, and them with Kirby.
Right.
You know, like
yeah,
I was like, shit, I am so privileged.
Yeah, I like trans stuff. Is like, it's not like I've been completely ignorant of it, but I know a lot less about that than many other things.
Right.
I don't know what it's like to be trans at all.
No.
You know?
And then when we finally do our episode on African American English, and then when we do it on sign language, all of these things are going to remind me, like, how the world is much more accessible to me. How it's much more arms wide open for me in comparison to a lot of people. So
right, and for me, even more so than you.
Yeah. I guess we'd say that we kind of hope that we're showing that to listeners too.
Yeah. I can't share like this intimate thing about myself like you did with your pronunciation of your last name. Like, I don't have anything like that. So instead, I'm just gonna like, here's my privilege.
Yeah.
That's all I can do. Like, that's me opening up as much as I can.
Right.
So thank you everybody for listening.
Yeah.
And next episode, we don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something interesting, I'm sure, because it always is.
Yes. And I'll learn everything because I knew nothing. And listen, don't be an asshole.
Do not be an asshole.
Bye.
Bye.
The Vocal Fries podcast is produced by Chris Ayers for Halftone Audio. Theme music by Nick Granum. You can find us on Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Vocal Fries Pod. You can email us at vocalfriespod@gmail.com.